Greetings, Highpoint Church family. This is Pastor Forrest with you here today. I'm excited as we are on December the 13th for our 25 Days of Christmas devotional series. Today we're going to be reading from the book of Micah in chapter 5, verse 2. Let's read together today. But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are from old, from ancient times. The title of our devotional today is this: An Innkeeper Prepares for His Guests. Let's hop into the story. Busy, the innkeeper hustled around the room trying to get everything in order. Even since the census had been called, people had been pouring into Bethlehem each day looking for lodging and food and merriment. He had created spaces throughout his inn that he had never thought of to use. And besides having every normal room filled with guests, he had people on the floor in the hallway, some in the courtyard, families throughout the great hall and the eating area. He even had guests sleeping on the roof. The only place he hadn't yet used was the animal stables, but he couldn't see himself putting any paying guests there. It just wasn't suitable, and he was a well-respected innkeeper. And despite all the work he'd put in and the lack of sleep he'd enjoyed in the past few days, he didn't mind. Business was great, and it was nice to have so many paying customers. But even beyond that, the innkeeper was proud to have so many people coming into his little city. Bethlehem was small in the nation of Israel, and it was so small that the Romans paid little attention since there was so much going on in Jerusalem. Despite its size, though, the innkeeper felt it was underappreciated by the Jewish community. Having so many guests coming into town for the census was giving himself and the other locals the chance to show off how great their little town really was, especially those who had at some point moved away into the city in search of greater opportunities. But whenever he could, he reminds the visitors of the words of Micah: one day a ruler of Israel will come from Bethlehem. We won't seem so small and insignificant then, he thought. Mostly people just chuckled at the innkeeper to humor him, or they would roll their eyes as they went on their way. That's okay, someday, probably not in his lifetime, but that was fine with him. Someday the words of the prophet would ring true, and a ruler would rise up from their small town and bring glory to them. The innkeeper stopped his duties for a moment and considered Micah. He was from a small town in southern Israel, and Micah had come from Maresheth, and he understood what it meant to come from a village of global insignificance. The innkeeper wondered how he handled it. Was he jealous of the larger, more important cities? Did he feel insignificant from the other prophets like Isaiah or Jeremiah? Or did he hold his head high on account of his small town? No matter. For the innkeeper, he was proud of his little town of Bethlehem. It may not stand like a pillar on the horizon or provide great seats of government, but it took care of its people and whatever guests seemed to find their way into town going to and fro from Jerusalem, which at the moment was almost more than the poor innkeeper could handle. He had a few spots remaining that he knew he could fill just by the soft glow of dusk. Just a couple more spots and he would be all filled up. No room left at the end. He hadn't said those words in a long time, and he looked forward to saying them tonight. You know, I want to ask you today, have you ever felt insignificant? Have you ever felt like you don't matter in this world, or that no one really cared about your contribution in this life? None of us are immune to feeling this way, no matter our level of success, our status, social following, or even bank account. We are all faced with the question of, do I matter in this world? And if we ever find ourselves asking this question, then we should immediately realize we have stopped listening to the words of the Lord. I think each of us is significant to God, and He creates all of us with a purpose. And just as Micah prophesied about Bethlehem, a small, insignificant village just to the south of Jerusalem, always overshadowed by the great city of kings and the hub of all Jewish life, truly, Bethlehem would have its moment. It would one day be the birthplace of the Messiah and would forever be remembered around the world. And consider other individuals that Jesus made significant beyond their status and popularity. I think about the woman with the issue of blood who reached out in faith to be healed, and now she's forever remembered in Scripture. Or even the woman at the well who was instrumental in bringing Jesus to the Samaritan people. These two ladies and so many others just like them were going about their ordinary life, stuck in their problems and trials and difficulties, and without realizing it, went from insignificance to great importance. That went from unknown to eternally known, and all they did was step out in faith and be obedient to Jesus. In this Christmas season, I want to invite you to not let circumstances or challenges cause you to think that you aren't important. Don't allow the lie of insignificance to settle in your mind. Remember, you are always important to the Lord no matter what, and He has a way of taking the obedience and faith of His children and creating something great out of it. Remember today, walk in faith and move in obedience and discover how significant you really are to God.